What are these brown spots on the pages?
You get straight to the heart of the matter, Mr.
Jack. It's just Jack.
That's called foxing, Jack, just Jack. It's what time does to books, to all of us. In the profession, we say it's slightly foxed. Interested?
You know, there's a mistake.
A mistake?
Well, isn't there? Above the door, the sign.
What about it?
Well, it's wrong, isn't it? There's no apostrophe in books.
There is.
No, there isn't.
There is.
There isn't.
There is.
There isn't.
There is if your name is Book and you own the shop, which it is and I do. My name's Book. Books. Confusing, I know. Or is it handy? I can never decide. Anyway, I'm Book and I run a bookshop. This one, obviously. You must be here about the job. Tea.
And that is a clip. In fact, it's like the opening sequence, I think, of Bookish, which is a new TV series brought to you by all-round good guy and national treasure, Mark Gatiss. Hello, Mark. How are you, sir?
Hello, I'm very good. Thank you for having me.
Well, it looks as though you're in I don't know, some kind of Airbnb, I would think.
I'm in a hotel as it's the big press junket for the show today. You're the first, so I'm very fresh.
Right. I'm never quite sure if whether it's best to be the first or, get you when you're warmed up. But anyway, I'm in London. Mark's in Munich. Just introduce us to I think the great thing about that clip is we kind of get a feel of it already, but introduce us to Bookish, which has been a labour of love, I think.
Well, it's a detective series set in London in 1946. I play Gabriel Book, an antiquarian book dealer, and I solve crimes on the side. And I'm in a lavender marriage as a gay man with my wife Trotty, played by the great Polly Walker. And it's 6 episodes of knotty post-war crime. And it's something, yes, I've been working on it for a long time. And it's one of my favourite periods, a very under-examined period, Attlee's Britain. Really, the post-war period doesn't get much attention, but I think it's absolutely fascinating. So it's a kind of combination of the spirit of Alistair Sim in Green for Danger and the palette of Powell and Pressburger. That's what I've decided to pitch to you today, because I know you'd appreciate it.
Am I right in saying that you originally thought of this as a novel?
Yes, actually, it's been buzzing around in my head for a long time. I've always loved detectives. I'm absolutely immersed in the genre and read hundreds of them. And I've always wanted to play one. And then I had this idea for a while. And then during lockdown, I mean, everyone's got this story. I thought, well, now's the time. I thought I might write it as a book. And I started it. But I was looking for a sort of light tone, sort of black comedy, really. And somehow the international atmosphere of the pandemic didn't seem to suit that. No. And I found I just couldn't get the tone. But weirdly, I found I could get the tone writing a script. So I wrote a script. And then after lockdown, I was amazing. I was at the Radio Times covers party. And I met Joe McGrath and Walter Isolino from Eagle Eye, a production company Eagle Eye, and Walter said, "You don't have a period detective in you, do you?" And I said, "I've got a script, like one of those scenes in a film that you never quite believe," and that's where it started.
What was it about the writing it for the screen that unlocked what you wanted to do, which you couldn't do in a book?
I suppose it's because I generally write scripts and not novels, and I suppose the flow of the dialogue and the tone I was looking for, I found easier to sort of express than in prose in that way. But there were, by weird fate now, Matthew Sweet, who I've co-written the rest of the show with, has novelized all 3 stories. The very old-fashioned thing, the novelization. So he's kind of found the tone which I was unable to find during lockdown.
Okay, Mark now from his sauna somewhere in Germany.
Yes,
sauna in Germany. Hi, Mark.
A Munich sauna.
Yes. So I have to confess that I binged watched the entire series. I started and I was hooked, and I went all the way through. And I really enjoyed it. One of the things that I enjoyed the most is that one of the stories, each story takes place essentially over 2 episodes, although there's an overarching story. One of them takes place in the middle of the filming of a British movie. And there are loads and loads of things in there that I smiled at because I could imagine you coming up with them. Specifically, at one point, there is a discussion about British films. Then they aren't any good. They're all rubbish. I want to make a proper British film. And I know how much you are a great fan of, for example, Talking Pictures TV and the wealth of British cinema that we've seen on there. How much were you enjoying writing a whodunit detective set within that world that I know that you are so affectionate about?
Well, to be honest, the second one, Matthew Sweet's idea because, he wrote two brilliant books about the war and before the war. One called Shepperton Babylon and one called The West End Front, about the British film industry and about London's hotels during the war. And I said to him, can you write one about that and one about that? So a huge amount of that film stuff is from Matthew's amazing researchers, really. He really got like the last interviews with an awful lot of people from the silent days and stuff like that. So the huge amount of the real detail is from that, is that stuff. But it's a wonderful playground, of course it is. And I remember adjusting one line. There's book says Uncle Tom Cobley and all, and I said, let's make it Tom Conway for 4.5 people who will get that joke. So it was full of delights like that, really. And there is a lot interesting stuff, I think, about that whole period. It's a time when people were able to reinvent themselves, but also, the early days of the film industry were replete with people in that Garbo and Gilbert way whose careers never survived sound or went off in different directions. And I think it sort of also appealed to me for the flavor of the whole show, really, which is sort of bittersweet, that there's a kind of semi-tragic quality to an awful lot of that stuff. And it's also, I think the 40s is probably the greatest decade for British film.
So before you go, thank you very much indeed for watching this review, but it is only a small part of what we do. Ain't that right, Mark?
A very small part. We do a weekly podcast from which these little tasters are taken when we review all the week's releases.
And we talk through all of those releases in great detail and with great precision.
And Simon interviews the biggest names from those releases.
And we discuss a whole bunch of stuff.
So join us by following our podcasts wherever you get yours. It's the only movie podcast you need. Kermode and Mayo's Take.
Exactly. I entirely agree with Mark. What was it called again?
Kermode and Mayo's Take.
That's very good.